Good evening, very warm welcome to the West Yorkshire Football Show and our usual Monday night roundup here across YouTube, social media on X and Twitter, and all the usual social media platforms. I'm Chris Bell. Tonight to say, joining me as ever are Gareth Walker, Lewis Hale, and Stephen Downs. Jayson Booker will hopefully join us a little bit later on this evening to talk all things Leeds United. First things first, how are we, lads? Are we all well?
Not so bad.
Brilliant.
Don't all shout at once, will you?
How are you, Christopher?
Very well, thank you. Very well. Gaz, we'll start with Bradford City. And for the Bantams, another busy week it was last week, and more new faces through the door.
Stephen Humphries and Ibu Toure, the two signings we made last week. I think they were done in time, probably done or announced then because we started pre-season training today, but both look like solid captures on paper. I think they improve us, or they definitely give us more depth in their positions. Barnsley fans seem to rate Humphries quite highly. They said as long as you play, he can play wide or up front. They said they found he was a lot better wide. I think his versatility will be good for us. Obviously, we are a striker short with Andy Cook being injured. We're definitely short up top, but he can play either or, which is good. Scored 9 goals last season, finished the season with 5 in 5 when they moved him wide. Apparently MK Dons were heavily in for him, so they're throwing a lot of money around. So we've done well there to get him, I think. Looked like a bit of a coup. So exciting signing. And Ibu Toure, someone the manager knows well. Obviously had promotion with Stockport recently, finished 3rd with them last year, left wing back, where Lewis Richards still hasn't re-signed. Tariq Wright's the only option we've got there at the moment. So, and he knows Graham Alexander well, having played for him at Salford. So, another winner and another one who's going to buy into everything that Alexander wants from his players. So, I think they're two really good signings on paper. Let's see how they do when the matches start.
Yeah, and obviously for Ibu Toure, well, in fact for both of them, but starting with Toure, obviously a season in that left back role last season at Stockport, comes in with that experience that he's had. Obviously, the fact that he knows Graham Alexander from his time at Salford previously as well, when they were both there together. On the face of it, it's going to be an interesting battle for that left wing back spot if Richards does sign on, which obviously I know you've been hoping that he will do. It's going to be some really strong competition there. And as for Tariq Wright, potentially freezing him up to move further downfield.
Yeah, you would imagine so. Tariq Wright's not impressed at left wing back at all, really. Lewis Richards was doing really, really well last season until he dislocated his shoulder twice, and a hamstring injury finished his season. So he is the man in possession, really. Teo Adaramola took over from him towards the end of last season when he came in on loan from Crystal Palace. But obviously we don't have him next season. Lewis Richards hasn't re-signed as yet. The last news was from Graham Alexander that him and Kieran Kelly, who are the two outstanding ones that were offered deals and haven't signed as yet, were close to being done. But nothing's been said since then. I think that was the middle of last week. Kieran Kelly has been spotted on the training photos today, whereas Lewis Richards hasn't. So what's going on there, I'm not quite sure. You would imagine there's going to be an announcement regarding Kieran Kelly, but if he's been there at training, but like I said, possibly not on Richards. I don't know. I honestly don't know what's going on there, but the last comment was that they were both close to re-signing. And like you say, Tariq Wright, if he does stay at the club, obviously Richards and Ibu Toure are going to be the first names that you're going to look at left wing back. So if Richards Wright stays, you'd imagine it frees him up to play further forward, or he's someone that we look to move on, I guess.
Do you think he's got a part to play going forward, though, Tariq Wright? Because, I mean, you mentioned, and we talked about this in the group chat the other day, about kind of potentially moving him on, but ultimately, League One squad depth is going to be absolutely key to the success of Bradford City next season. So there isn't a necessity to keep moving people on because you've got somebody that's already in that position. It's going to be crucial to have that depth and that quality.
Yeah, it's a difficult one because when he first signed for us, he had 2 loan spells with us, and then we signed him permanently. And the first loan spell, he was really, really good, playing on the left under Mark Hughes. Looks like a real find. Sadly, we couldn't keep him. We wanted to sign him permanently. as a left winger at the time, which is the position he'd been playing, and he was playing really well. He was scoring goals, assisting goals, and then Plymouth came in and outbid us, and he went to Plymouth on a permanent deal. Didn't work out from at Plymouth. He came back on loan towards the back end of the 23-24 season, and played up front a couple of times, did all right, then picked up a hamstring injury. And when he came back into the side after that, he was shunted to left wing back under Graham Alexander. Graham Alexander said he was his man. He wanted him to play at left wing back, but he's just not really impressed there. He's not looks like he can play that role. He just looks a little bit like a fish out of water. He's certainly not the player he was when he was playing wide left or up front. It's disappointing, really. He seems like he's regressed a little bit. Maybe you can find that form in him again if you put him further forward. He would be an option. I know Graham Alexander likes to have options in the attacking midfield positions or up front, and he has been used there on occasion. But his main role under Alexander has been at left wing back, so it remains to be seen whether he'll stay as a left wing back, he'll stay as an attacking midfielder, or whether he'd be moved on. I honestly don't know what's going to happen there. I would say he's certainly not someone who you would be desperate to move on. He's someone that can play 2 or 3 different positions, and that's obviously, like you say, going to be beneficial in the squad game that is League One. So he's definitely not an urgent, we need to shift him on, but he's someone that perhaps might move on later in the window if people come in for him and he's not settled at City, he's not featuring regularly. I don't know. Like I say, your Tyler Smiths and your Adam Wilsons and maybe even your Clark Oduors are much more likely to move on than Tyreek Wright at this moment in time.
Yeah, absolutely. Don't forget, Bantams fans or fans of any other side in our region, get in touch with us here on the West Yorkshire Football Show. Get your comments in across Facebook, X, and YouTube. Big thank you to Andrew Pinfield, who's tuned in from Guernsey this evening. Let's talk then a little bit more about Stephen Humphreys, because 9 goals in 37 games for Barnsley in League One last season. A wealth of League One experience, having played for the likes of Wigan and Rochdale in the past as well, amongst many others. A reasonable return from him last season. Suggested by Barnsley fans that he's better out wide than he is through the middle, but he has played through the middle at other clubs in the past and had better success. So a potentially valuable experienced option up front without him being particularly old, given that he's just 27.
Yeah, do you know what? It's a funny one because he's someone that I always thought might end up at City at some point. He's just one of those players when you've seen him play. He's always kind of impressed. He's always don't know. He just looks like a City player, sort of player that City might sign. I remember when he signed for Southend. I think he made his debut at Valley Parade on loan from Fulham at the time, and he scored twice, and he absolutely tore us apart that day. I think he signed the same day as he made his debut. It was a Saturday morning signing, and he played that afternoon, and they beat us 4-0, and he scored twice, and he was absolutely brilliant. And I've just kind of monitored his career since then, really. Like you say, Rochdale, Southend, Wigan. I had a spell north of the border at Hearts. If anyone saw a goal he scored for Hearts a year or two back, he scored from the halfway line for Hearts.
Yeah, an absolute welder.
He's definitely got ability. He's a great striker of the ball, great dribbler. He's 2-footed. I think he's a good capture. The only issue that has possibly been suggested at the Barnsley end is that he can lose interest at times. That's something that Graham Alexander will have to drill out of him. Whether it's true or not, I don't know. But I'm quite excited about that one. That's probably, along with the left back that we signed from Wimbledon, he's probably the right back that we signed from Wimbledon. He's probably the signing of the summer for us so far.
It really is starting to shape up, like the recruitment from Bradford. You look at the players that they've brought in. There's a really good caliber amongst the majority of them, and in Josh Murphy, the right back, somebody who had such a good season, a breakout season for him last season at Wimbledon. The signings on the face of it look very good. And again, me and Jay were talking in the group chat the other day, and you're not going to like this, Gaz, but we were potentially tipping City to do certainly a little bit better than we originally expected them to. We originally kind of thought, look, it'll be a good season if you can stay in that lower mid-table and stay up. But the players that are coming in on paper are suggesting that they might be able to do a little bit better.
It's really difficult because you don't want to raise expectations too much at City because we know what that leads to when things don't go well. The crowd turn really quickly when expectations are high and they're not fulfilled. I've said right from the start, now we've been promoted into League One, that we don't have the money to compete with the Huddersfield Towns that are in that division and can go and spend £3 million on a striker. We just can't do that.
Yeah, they're the new Birmingham.
We've got to build. We've got to build over time and hopefully progress in League One over time. But the recent fans forum, Stefan Rupp was asked about the money that he'd invested last season, which obviously paid off in helping us get out of League Two, and the money that he was investing this season. And the story was that when we got relegated from League One in that 2020, I think it was, no, 20, whenever it was anyway, we had the biggest budget in the division and went down in last place. We're told now that if we had that same budget now, 6 years later, it would be like a 17th place budget in the division. That's how much League One has changed over that period of time. But Stefan said that the money that he's put in has possibly upped us to a playoff level budget, a top 6, top 7 budget. So that's why we're making the signings, or we're able to do what we have done so far in the transfer market. But personally, my priority is staying up. That I just want to not get carried away, stay up and build. Anything on top of that is a bonus. And if we can push on and make a playoff challenge at best, then that is absolutely fantastic for a first year back in League One.
It's a bold sign of commitment, though, isn't it, from Stefan Rupp? Not quite sure if you lost me for a second there. Can you hear me, Gaz?
Yeah, I've got you back now. Did you just say it's
a commitment? Just saying, it is a bold sign of commitment, isn't it, from Stefan Rupp, given everything over the last few years, to be, open publicly and say that, he's hoping that the budget that he's investing, the money he's investing, will give you some of that top 7, top 8 budget.
Yeah, it makes you think something's changed there with him. The rumour is that he's picked up the bug after the ending to last season. You don't finish it. If you're at a football match and something happens like what happened at Bradford on the last day of last season, you don't get the bug for football, then you're never going to get the bug for football. That's one of those moments that football fans dream of. If you could bottle it and sell it, you'd be a millionaire. Stefan's always been open during his time at the club that he's not a football man, but perhaps we're turning him into a football man. He's definitely invested more emotionally than he has been in the past. That's obviously changed gradually, I think, since Edin left. And obviously Ryan went to him and asked for help with the budget to bring in somebody like David Sharp, which has obviously helped us on the transfer front as well. So maybe that's what's changing now. Now, whether that can last when things perhaps aren't going so good, is he still going to be willing to invest emotionally and financially when things aren't going so good? It's obviously something that he's going to be more willing to do when things are going well, like they were towards the end of last season. We've got something to play for and we're challenging for automatic promotion, then it's something to aim for and something to invest for. Whether that lasts, I don't know. I hope it does, because an interested owner at Bradford City can only be beneficial. Obviously, we've had the talk about the ground and the training ground that me and Downsy spoke about on last week's podcast, the comments that were made there, where Stefan is interested in not only buying the ground back, but buying the training ground back. Obviously, not buying the training ground back, setting up a new training ground. I think that's more come because we couldn't agree a deal to buy back the ground from Gordon Gibbs Pension Fund. There's a gap in valuation. So Stefan is saying that perhaps we can look at setting up our own training ground. Things like that are just going to be beneficial because, as I've said all along, not owning the ground and not owning our own training ground are the things that are going to hold us back in League One long term.
Absolutely. I'll come to you both, Lou, Stephen, just to kind of get your thoughts at the moment. Start with you, Lou, on kind of City and their recruitment so far and what you think in terms of how they're shaping up for League One.
I like it. I like it a lot. It reminds me of the recruitment that we did last season in League Two. You guys will probably remember me saying I felt Bradford City had the best transfer window this time last year in League Two by improving winners and people who know what it takes to get over the line when it really matters and the tough gets going. And listen, City did have it a little bit during midway through the season where it got a little bit tough over Christmas. I think the recruitment this time is shrewd. The buying players who know this division, who were challenging at the right end of the table, who've obviously had success in previous clubs as well. I like it. It seems smart. It seems like also, which is a big thing for any club at this level, is that we're beating off competition in the same league as well. They are fighting off some of those teams that City will be hoping to challenge. The likes of Stephen Humphries is a good, he's a decent signing. Is he a world beater in that division? No, but there's other clubs in that division that would absolutely take him, and he fills a gap that City will probably need, and he's versatile. We've seen with Traore that what he's done at Salford in the past. He's come through the levels at non-league up to this level. He's a winner. He's done it with Stockport. He knows how to get in there as well. I like it. I think what I will say is, even though City didn't have a lot of depth, and I still think Smallwood, I respect Alexander from going from his head. I quite like that, where he feels that something just didn't seem right. I think it's a tricky one. I think it could be an interesting one where they probably could have kept him for another year at least, just to help him get over the line this season. But I respect a manager that's not going to take emotion based on that last season, because he clearly knows what he wants. You just don't want to overhaul it too much, because you've got that momentum from last season. You've got a group of players who were willing to fight and pretty much throw their bodies on the line for each other. And that momentum from the last day, pretty much the last kick of the season is something that no club in the EFL are going to do this season. So you've got to be careful not to, like I say, completely.
If anyone's on the internet, can they come off, because this is really struggling?
Live updates there from Aki.
There we go. I think Gaz forgot to mute himself before shouting at the kids for that one, Gaz. Because it's really struggling for Gas at the moment, we'll just turn our attention, Danzig, to yourselves. And obviously, it's going to be an exciting season in League One for both Bradford and Huddersfield fans in terms of being against each other in the League One table this coming season. I mean, how are you kind of looking, just across the MCC2 at the Claret and Amber lads at Valley Parade?
Yeah, I think, listen, Bradford did great to get up last season. I will go on record and say that I was really, really pleased for Gaz and for Bradford as a club. I think a lot of Town fans, depending on what era you support Town, you either really dislike Bradford and don't mind Leeds, or the other way around. Well, I'm certainly one that don't mind Bradford at all. I think they're a really good club, and I used to play for the disability team as well, so I know a lot of people connected with the club. Listen, I think the thing we City this season is they've got to just maintain to keep up. I don't think they'll be in worries of relegation, because I actually think they're with Donny probably the second strongest team that have come up. I can see Wimbledon struggling, if I'm honest. But the signings that they've made, the type of signings that will get you to a certain level in League One. Now, I don't think City fans should get ahead of themselves and go, well, we could be pushing for playoffs or anything. Listen, the momentum might be behind them, don't get me wrong, and that takes you a long way in football. We've seen that before with various teams, Ipswich, Luton, even Town to some extent in the past. But it's a really good start. I like the right back that they've brought in. I really like Humphries. I think he's going to be a superb signing for City. I know what Gaz was saying about sometimes he's a bit, apparently from Barnsley's side, they said he's a bit lax sometimes, but I can see an experienced manager like Alexander getting the best out of him. They needed clearly a centre forward anyway for Cook. And I think the one thing that they've got in Humphries is somebody who can play week in, week out and score goals in this division and score important goals. And, it's quite clear to see that Barnsley fans didn't want him to go. So, that's always a good sign, isn't it? When you get a player that, opposition fans in the same league don't want you to nick. I think there was rumours that he was going to go to MK Dons, but, Bradford, having been promoted, and the size of the club, is definitely a draw. I think if City manage to stay up this season, and then they can build on sort of the foundations to stay in this division long term, and then hopefully rise up the division, that's when you'll see the better players choosing Bradford City. At the moment, there's probably a a sort of thinking in the market of, well, we don't know if City can sustain this and be a League One club for a long time. But I'm sure if the club stays up, then they'll have players will start to get the opinion, look, let's go sign for Bradford City because the club's going places. It's clearly got ambition. I think that's the other thing. Stefan Rupp, like Gaz has said, has got the bug back and wants to sort of move the club forward again. There's obviously a few bugs going on with the Gaz's internet. Listen, I'm happy for them. I think they'll do well. I don't think they'll be... I can see him definitely being around mid-table with the momentum and stuff. And that, if they finished, 12th, between 10th and 15th in the first season, that's going to be a good season. I think Donny will do well as well. I'm not as convinced as what everybody else thinks about Port Vale. And I do think Wimbledon are the next Crawley, to be honest.
Yeah, see, I expect a little bit better than for Wimbledon. I think they'll do all right. And we'll try and get Gaz back in due course. He's clearly struggling.
Gaz might have kicked the cat at the same time as kicked the internet box.
I'm sure. Oh, in fact, there we go. See if he's back with us now, is he? You there, Gaz?
No.
Can you hear us, Gaz?
Oh.
Close, but no cigar, it seems. Gaz, one more chance?
No.
Absolutely not. Let's turn our attention then to Huddersfield Town and hope that Gaz will catch up with us in due course if his internet lets him. I'll say turn to Huddersfield then, Downsy, and again another busy week for all at the John Smith Stadium last week. Murray Wallace, the last I think of the new recruits to have joined.
Yeah, Murray Wallace joining the club, rejoining us from 2000.
It's a fourth spell, isn't it?
No, it's only
according to the BBC, it's a fourth spell.
Well, we've got that horrifically wrong. I don't know where they've got that from. He was with us 9 years ago, and he left the club to go to Scunthorpe when they were obviously riding high. Listen, Murray, we bought Murray from Falkirk as a young centre back, and he came down in a time where there was a few players from Scotland that we got in League One. Now he went away on loan in his first season. When we loaned him back to Falkirk, and then he joined us permanently, properly, sort of has been part of part of the Huddersfield Town squad in the Championship under Simon Grayson. I think
there we go. Just to show you that I'm not making this
up. I know that you're not lying. I just think that they mean that he went on loan and came back. He's not left the club permanently and come back permanently 3 times. So I don't really know where they're getting that from. But yeah, it's a good signing. 32 years old now. He were never quick when he were younger, in like 24, when we had him in his prime. I mean, he was one of the slowest centre-backs I've ever seen. So I dread to think how slow he might be now. However, the one thing that everybody has said, and I totally agree with everybody, listen, he's a good character. He's played at the Championship level. Being at a club like Millwall, where you've got to be a tough character as well. He knows the club, because he was here 9 years ago, even though it's changed and we've gone through many guys since then. The centre-backs that we have signed, in terms of Joe Lowe from Wickham, obviously Lincoln's standout player in Sean Rowan, that we nabbed off you for a very cut price. He's only 22. And then we've got Josh Feeney, who signed as well at the back end of last week on loan from Aston Villa. He's only 19. So, we let Matty Pearson go. We let Tom Lees go, who's still apparently training with the club. So we needed some experience in there. And I don't mind the signing of Murray, but I don't think he'll be... It depends how he plays. Like, nobody seems to know what Grant's formation is going to be. So if he plays 3 at the back, he'll probably get a bit more game time than what I'd expect. But if he plays a 4 at the back, I don't see Murray being first choice. I just don't, unless Sean Rowan's going to play as his left back.
I was going to say, yeah, he came through as a left back, to be fair, as Sean was originally. It's only in the last 12 months or so that he's been a left side centre half. So the options there with him to be more flexible, and I guess that gives Lee Grant the options formation wise with what he wants. Go to James's comment. He says he's happy with the freebies. I mean, they're not all freebies. As I say, Sean Rowan's turning out about $500,000 minimum by all accounts. From what I'm seeing, the Lincoln side of things, because obviously you've avoided the tribunal side of things, and that could have been considerably more given his youth caps and youth appearances, and the fact that he's developed and had 200 appearances for Lincoln. I mean, James, simple question is, what else do you need?
Yeah, so, well, we've also got to pay a tribunal fee for Joe Lowe as well, because unlike Lincoln's been happy with what we've given you.
You've given us what we asked for.
Well, I don't think it's quite $500,000. I still suspect it's below that, but Joe Lowe will be a tribunal fee. I think, what else do we need? Listen, there's big talk this week about two major signings that I think if we got these signings, we're not the new Birmingham because we're not spending 10 million on Jay Stansfield.
I mean,
but no, we're not.
If you end up paying $3 million for Ethan Galbraith, that's Birmingham money.
No, it's big money, but it's not Birmingham money. I think it's big money, but it's not Birmingham money. Listen, $3 million for Galbraith, $2.5 million for Nathan Lowe from Stoke. I'm telling you now, if we got those two signings over the line, I know I was confident last year, and listen, I was wrong last year. I think last year was a squad built on sand, and it crumbled quite quickly. I'm beginning to be confident about what Lee Grant can do.
Nathan Lowe apparently off to Plymouth going to Terrier 930.
Yeah, Terrier 930. I don't know if you've seen the same tweet I have. The person that's tweeted that has got 18 followers and doesn't seem to know a lot. But you might have, I don't know, you might have read that off down at the back as well. Please clarify where you've seen that. But yeah, I've seen those rumours. I think we've got a good relationship with Stoke because of Sorba Thomas going. I can see us going in for another bid for Nathan Lowe. I think he's the one clearly that we've been going after all summer. A bit like Alfie May. I really hope we get it over the line. I think Kevin, I'm hoping that has learnt from the last couple of seasons where you can't muck about. You've just got to get in there and get your target. I'd really like Ethan Galbraith to come. I think the interesting thing with him is he was under Grant at Man United. He was also he worked under McShane at Man United, so they clearly know who he is. Although he plays for Leyton Orient, he's a northern lad, so it's close to his roots.
Yeah, down at the Mac, he says is where he's seen that.
Yeah, so it's a pinch. Yeah, so listen, it's the same thing I've seen. That somebody's got it off Twitter, and the person on Twitter's got about 18 followers. So. You never know, but I don't listen. There's going to be clubs in for him, isn't there? He's clearly a talented striker at 19, but I'm just
Luton another one that's in for him or linked with him, so he's not going to be short of suitors. It's fair to be said.
He's not, but I just think, listen, if we can get those over the line, the big transfers in this league, a bit like Joe Taylor was in January, and I think we're going to see probably the best from Joe Taylor this season. I'm hoping so anyway. So they're the big rumours. Also, a lad called Goodman, who was Wimbledon's goalkeeper last year.
Yeah, Owen Goodman,
yeah. I think he will sign tomorrow. He's basically following us on Instagram. So for me, that tells me I think that says everything really. When his official personal account starts following the club, I think that tells you everything. He's going to have a medical tomorrow, and I can see that being done and dusted at least by Wednesday. Apparently a good goalkeeper.
Yeah,
I didn't see a lot of him for Wimbledon last year. But
superb season. Superb goalkeeper, to be fair. He really is fantastic. And to be fair, that's a great loan move. It really is.
Yeah, I can see. I don't know how rated he is at Palace. I wouldn't be shocked if. Yeah, I won't. I mean, I wouldn't be shocked if if we tried a loan with an option to buy, because Town do like that. Even going back years, we've always tried to do them sort of deals. Now, whether Palace think he's going to be a number one for them, that might be a different matter.
Yeah, I suspect there won't be that option in
no, probably not. But it would be nice if there was, if we cheekily could put it in. I do wonder how that affects Lee Nichols and Jacob Chapman, though. I think it affects Lee Nichols more than Jacob Chapman, and I could see Lee Nichols leaving for.
Well, is he contracted or was he out of contract at the end of the
No,
season?
he's got 1 year left. He's got 1 year left. So he's still with us. I can see him going on a very nominal. I don't think we'll sell him for a lot of money, to be honest.
Yeah, no, that's fair enough.
So,
I mean, but if these sorts of deals, though, that sort of money do get spent, as we said, the signs would be on the face of it very good. But how much extra pressure does that actually put on Lee Grant? Because nobody can ever argue, especially Lee Grant could never argue that he hasn't been backed. If some of these signs come to fruition and the likes of Galbraith join for £2.5–3 million, for example.
Yeah, I think it puts a bit big pressure, but I'm very interested to see how he handles the pressure. Listen, his coaching staff has been announced. We had the goalkeeper announced today, the coach for the goalkeeper, which is Chris Elliott, former Leeds United coach and Bradford City goalkeeper, and played for numbers of clubs. He's only 32. His coaching staff's very young. I'm telling you now, it must be the youngest coaching staff in the entire EFL, because I don't think anybody's over the age of 39, from what I understand. I mean, I might be wrong on Mark Bridges there. I'd need to check, but certainly not over 45. So it must be the youngest coaching staff in the EFL.
I think Matt Bridge Wilkinson has to be in his early 40s by now. I remember seeing a Liverpool youth game the year before last when he was obviously in charge of their academy side. I'm sure he must be like 43, 44 now.
I don't think there's nobody over 45 though, so it's still young, isn't it? So yeah, I can see big pressure being Apple. Like I said, nobody can say that he's not been back. Kevin's obviously got the checkbook out. He clearly wants to get out of this division. We don't want to be in this division, and I think you've got to get out of it this season. I don't think there's an option not to. I think we failed last year miserably. I think everybody was deflated last year, and come to the realization that we just needed to get most of this squad out, and they have done that in the summer. To be fair to them, they've had a right good clear out. They've got rid of Sorba Thomas as well off the books and managed to sell him on. So it's a very renewed. It feels very fresh, very new. Optimism, I think, is very high now, and I can see season tickets selling on the back of that. Let's just hope it's not built on sand. Obviously, the first pre-season game is on Saturday against Emley. I don't know how that stands with lads that we can sign on July the 1st, whether they probably won't be able to play. So, I mean, you might know, lads, more about that than me, but I don't see any of the new lads playing because I don't think they'll be allowed to, because I think they have to be registered after 1st of July, but there we are.
I'd have thought so. Yeah, I'd have thought so, unless they're named as a trialist, but I'd assume that we won't be able to play unless it's agreed.
Yeah.
Gaz, thanks for coming back. I mean, now you've probably kicked the kids off the PlayStation, you've taken the missus off the Wi-Fi on a phone and tablet, I imagine, and you switched off the Skybox now, so it's good to have you back with us, mate.
Thank you. I don't know how long it's going to last, because it's fine when I'm listening to you guys, but you can see yourself when you're talking, I'm really delayed and jerky. You lot are all fine, but personally, I'm delayed and jerky, so sorry about that, boys. And I did try and mute before I shouted at my kids, but the mute was as delayed as the stream itself.
It just made it better that you shouted at your kids live on air, mate. I'll be honest.
That's an outtake for the end of season blooper reel.
100%.
Absolutely. Lou, just want to, before we kind of move away from Huddersfield, just kind of want to get your take on things, really. And I'm going to kind of ask you, I guess, the question that I'll not ask Downsy, because he'll accuse me of being negative. But worst case scenario, 10, 12 games in, the results aren't necessarily going the way that, obviously Town fans would want. Again, with that pressure on Lee Grant, where do you think it stands?
He's unproven. I don't think many Huddersfield towns, if any, and those that are watching with a keen eye on it, really understand or know what's going to happen with Lee Grant. We hear, good things about him, what he's capable of doing coaching-wise, what he can offer from an attacking perspective, how he supported Kieran McKenna at Ipswich. He's done a wonderful job there, but it's so different being number one compared to being a number two or an assistant coach as well. I would suspect that if things went a little bit wrong, he's got to be given time. It's as simple as that, because Nagel's trusted him. He's put and backed him with money. At the end of the day, you can't get rid of a manager so early into his managerial career after potentially what could be a poor run of results. If it does go that way, it could go the opposite way. It could absolutely go the opposite way, where actually 7 or 8 out the first 15. So I think there's a lot of questions that will be asked of Lee Grant. I think he's got to be given time. I can't stress that enough. I think Town fans will give him a little bit of extra time because he is unproven. He's not like a Michael Duffy, if I'm kind of making a comparison. It feels a different kind of appointment. It feels a different kind of culture that we're wanting to create. But at the end of the day, the guy's still there to do the same job as what Duff is doing. And we know how that ended with Duff. From my perspective, he's got to be given at least a season. I've said this, and we've all incredibly competitive next year, and it feels that the way that Nagel is backed Grant will set expectations. Do I see Huddersfield challenging at the top of the table at the moment? No, I don't. Do I expect them to be a little bit better than what they were last season? I'm not too sure. I'm really not too sure. And I think, and the reason why I'm saying that is because I think there's still a lot of work to do within that squad.
Yeah.
I think the midfield and the wingers need a bit of an overhaul depending on what system he's playing, but you feel like he's got to have a plan B, C and D, which probably Huddersfield didn't have too much in the back pocket last season. I don't want to sound negative because I think it's an encouraging appointment to see a young English coach coming through the ranks and given an opportunity at a club that is expected to do well. And I absolutely hope for Lee Grant and Huddersfield Town's sake that it really does, it's a partnership in heaven. But what I will say is it's come with a little bit of caution because we just don't know what we don't know. And I would even suggest in pre-season, I don't think we'll know exactly what Town will set up like. We'll have an idea, but it's different from playing in a friendly with the respects of playing Emily. I know that feels very distant to the first day, and it's going to be, day and night from that. But I would suspect we'll see what Huddersfield are all about probably come the 8th, 9th, 10th game of the season. Yeah. And I wouldn't judge Huddersfield even on that position and performance for the rest of the season.
Absolutely, Gaz?
Yeah, just a quick one from me. I'd be interested to know Downs' thoughts on whether the pressure is on more this year or was it on more last year, just because of the backing that the new management team have had and the fact that Birmingham and Wrexham aren't in the division anymore, and there's not really... You're the big hitter this year, aren't you? That really looking at what's been done so far.
Yeah, I think...
Big spenders.
I think they're the... Shut up, Chris. I think the pressure last year, guys, was different to this year, because the pressure last year was we had Michael Duff in charge, who lost, disappointingly in the playoff final to Sheffield Wednesday. So he was one of the most experienced managers in that division, who everybody thought he could turn around what was a poor squad into championship players that we thought were championship players back to challenging to get back into the championship. I think because of how last season went, and actually probably might have been a good thing, because we got to the stage of this summer and everybody's gone, you've got to clear it out. You've got to get rid of the director of football. You've got to clear the entire squad out and get some fresh faces in and some fresh ideas and renewed optimism. Listen, I still think it was harsh on Duff that we got rid of him, because I still think we'd have ended up with the same result. I don't think we'd have got in the playoffs, but there'd have been a chance for him to reshape the squad how it was. Now, we've moved on from Duff and we've gone to Grant, who I've seen speak a couple of times now. He impresses me. I know that says not a lot. And Kane, who I do town talk with, doesn't really give any credence to club interviews because of the fact that they just say the same thing. However, I do think you get a sense of how, Grant's feeling. But I think there's more pressure this time, Gaz, on the fact that Nagel's really gone out and backed. The last two transfer windows, he spent $3 million on Taylor, 750 grand on Jake Charles. He might be going and spending $3 million on Galbraith and another 2.5 million on Nathan Lowe. And also the wages that we're offering. We're offering decent wages. So I think from a money aspect, we have to go up this season because of what Nagel's done with the money, and fair play to him, he's backed him. No town fan can ever turn around to him and say that he's not backed his managers. He's probably spent more in the 3 seasons now that he's been chairman of town, 2 years, than what Dean Oil did in 14, just because of the way that the club operated. So the pressure's there. I think I don't want to disagree with you, Lou, and I know that you're going to see slightly differently to me, because I know I was excited last year and I was proved wrong because, like I say, it was built on sand, and I know that you're being cautious because and it's your opinion, but I also don't see the other sides doing anything at the moment that thinks, do you know what, they're going to be far superior to us. Now,
Luton and Plymouth are going to be right up there. Stockport.
I'm not saying that. No, I'm not saying that they're not going to be up there, but they're not. They haven't made the moves in the market that I think we have at this moment in time. Luton don't necessarily need to because of the squad that they've got. I don't think Plymouth's going to be as. I think they'll be up there, but I don't see him. There's not a Birmingham or a Wrexham in this league now. So I think it will be. I think it will be tighter, but I don't think I'm going to stick up for Town, like I did last year.
It went well last year, and it'll go well this year. Clearly,
well, that's your opinion.
The League One preview show, when we do that in a couple of weeks' time, is going to be very interesting. It's fair to say.
Can I just say though? Can I just say that I think in this, Luton have got the parachute payments, which is going to be a massive effect in League One. There's no hiding that fact. For my opinion, Downs, and I don't know how you think of this, I actually think there's more pressure, and this sounds bizarre, but hear me out. I think there's more pressure on Kevin Nagle than there is Lee Grant.
Yeah, I agree with that. There's no pressure on Lee Grant because it's his first job. Whatever happens at Town, he's still going to go work in football. Whatever happens.
If you shit, you're buggered though.
No. Yeah, but I don't think I'm going to err on the side of excitement and say that I don't think he will be shit, because I think he's got a determination about him that I've seen in interviews. We've got rid of the crap director of football. Look at the players that we've brought in. The players that we've brought in this season so far are good signings. Joe Lowe's an excellent signing in this division. For any team, whether you're Luton or whether you're Wimbledon or whether you're Town.
That was the point.
Go on, guys, sorry.
Well, that was the point I was trying to make, really, in that where does the buck stop now? Because you say, like, the pressure's on Nagle, but Nagle's kind of done all that he can. He's throwing loads of money at it. He's got rid of the director of football. He's got rid of the manager. I don't know what else.
That is also a very fair point.
I don't know what else he can do. Do you know what I mean? So where does the buck stop this year if it doesn't go right?
Well, yeah. Let's not
League
also
Two.
Get ahead of ourselves. It's not a finish. Shut up, Chris. It's not a finished job yet. I agree with Lou, but there are a number of positions that need working on. I think we do need another centre midfielder. I don't think he's playing with wingers, so I don't think we're signing wingers. I think we have got wing backs at the club. Sorensen, as somebody put up the comment about, Miller, Ruskin. What I think we need a striker because we've got rid of a few. Hudlin's gone today, and we need some more creativity. But I am positive. I think I'm expecting I was a bit surprised last year of how you guys saw Town, and you were proved to be right. I'm expecting very much the same maybe attitude of you don't think we're as good as what I think we could be. But then again, I'm always going to stick up for the side that I support are. So it's all interest. All opinions are interesting. I will say that. And like I said, Chris, it's probably when we do the League One show in a couple of weeks, it will be interesting to see how everybody else sees their sides.
Yeah, it's gonna be. Also, we're gonna try and do the same sort of thing. I mean, I know we ended up with a little bit of a free for all and about 10 people on the screen at once, but last year's League One preview was to be fair, quite a highlight, I think, on the channel last year. If we can do the same and get a Plymouth fan, a Luton fan, and some fans from other clubs.
We might not have as many on.
I mean, it worked quite well. And look, if I can't remember the poor chap's name, and I feel terrible for not double checking this, but even the chap from Reading might be in a really good mood this time around because he was, in a bit of a bad way, bless him, last summer. But things have really turned around for Reading, so we'll have to see if we can get him back on.
I know that you want to move on, Chris, but because Jay's joined us, and we haven't really discussed Town with Jay the last couple of weeks, I would like to hear Jay's thoughts on how
take as long as you want, Jay. I'm curious.
Can I just say before you do that what you will have on the League One preview show this year is the Bradford City fan.
Yeah, we'll see if Jayson McKeown's free.
100%. With the post guy available. City Gen.
The internet's working fine now for Gaz.
Now he's talking.
Gaz has just punched the table underneath the laptop.
From me, I've got to say, down there, I see it similar to the boys. I know that we spoke in the group the other week, and I actually think League One's going to be like fire. I think it's going to be a fire division this season. While you don't have a Birmingham, I still think you're going to have teams that dominate. So, and I do look at Luton and probably even more so Plymouth. I think they should be in really, really good places to continue. I think Stockport will be more in and around the top two than they will be flirting with the playoffs, and they weren't that far away from automatic last season either. So
no,
I just think right now it's so difficult to say because you have no idea what level Grant's going to be at in terms of where he's at tactically. How does he manage to get the team to gel? Are you going to continue to get the players on board that fill in the gaps that you need? All them questions are still yet to be answered. I mean, there's nothing to say that after 10 games, you're nowhere near, and they bullet him. I don't think they would or should. I think if you're going to give a young manager like him the opportunity, you have to kind of commit to it to the season, almost, and kind of have to look for the rebuild job and think, what, even if we don't go up this season, so be it. We're building something and we go again, but that won't happen. It doesn't happen anywhere. So I think I honestly think right now it's a guessing game. You could finish anywhere between 5th and 15th.
It's wide open.
So you genuinely don't see us anywhere above 5th then at this moment?
I don't put you in and amongst the battle for the automatic. I just don't.
I don't know. I don't either.
I still think you've got too much to do within that squad to do that, and then the unknown quantity of Grant. If Grant turns into being Kieran McKenna 2.0 and he whips it together and the atmosphere all turns around all at once and the feeling all changes, there's so much to change there, isn't there? There's so much to spin back the other way. I think it's kind of blind optimism at the moment down there, and that's not to stick the knife in. It's just the way that I see it.
On that kind of note about kind of whipping everything together, where are season ticket sales at, for example, Downs? Because obviously that was a massive cause of frustration at the end of last season and coming into this one. Obviously, there was a lot of uncertainty for a long period because season ticket sales had been increased. Season ticket prices had been increased, and then there was a massive gap before things started happening in terms of Lee Grant being appointed. Where are things at, do you think, season ticket wise now? Because obviously that actually, as Jay points out, it's going to need that crowd and everything to come together if you are going to have a remarkable season.
Yeah, I'm not sure on numbers. I suspect that with the signings and the excitement of who we might be after, that there will have been a few more sales, definitely. Just as people get the bug again for football and going back to town. So I suspect that it will have gone closer to their break-even point. But I still think they're going to be down from last season. Excuse me. So I can see them being down. I don't have any inside knowledge of how many we've sold. I've tried to find out. Everything's quite tight-lipped. The one thing Town have got better at this summer than any other summer is the fact that they are keeping things well under wraps, with who we're going for. A bit like the Owen Goodman signing. Nobody knew about that until, fairly recently. So
Cardiff are going to be strong as well. I just have a feeling like when you think of like powerhouses in divisions, Cardiff,
Barry Murphy might be a tactical letdown for them.
Mm.
I mean, Cardiff fans have got a hell of a lot of backwards and sideways passing to look forward to next season under Barry Murphy. That's all I will say.
But we know, but the one thing about this division that I am really intrigued with, right, is that you've got Grant at Town, you've got Tom Cleverley at Plymouth, you've got Brian Barry Murphy at Cardiff, you've got Conor Hourahan at Barnsley. There's a lot of young head coaches in this division that are either have had the first job and failed, or it's the very first job that they're going for. And so
Darren Moore at Port Vale,
experienced head off the back of promotion.
No, but I'm talking about young. I'm talking about young managers. Grant McCann at Donny. He's done well at Donny, and I know he's been at Peterborough, but he's still a young head coach, isn't he? So there's a lot of young head coaches and managers around, and so I think there's pressure everywhere where you look, and that's the thing is, Joe. I know what you've just said about Cardiff, but I think there's a lot being put on the fact that these sides have just come down, and I still think there's a reason why Luton got relegated to League One. There's a reason why, obviously the one at Plymouth was obvious because they had the nutter Rooney in charge, but Cardiff have been crap for years in the Championship.
Sorry. Just to play devil's advocate for a slight second here, though, Danzy, that was you 12 months ago, relegated from the Championship.
Well, look what happened.
Hang on. Yeah, but what I'm saying is, yes, you're saying, there's this, but equally, look at, what obviously Birmingham did. But this, you can't blame the clubs going down because 12 months ago, that you were in the same, emotional boat, I guess. But I'm not blaming. I'm not blaming.
Jay. Didn't two of the relegated sides go back up?
No, it was just Birmingham.
No, it was just Birmingham. Yeah, so
Rotherham.
We're Rotherham, and they did worse than us. But listen, I'm not blaming the clubs at all. What I'm saying though is that just because they've come down doesn't make them the favourites to go back up. Listen, I know that I was very bullish last year, and like I've said and admitted, I don't know what's going on here, Louis Lou. But it was built on sand. Now I was wrong last season, and I'm quite happily and freely to admit it. But just because they've come down, I wouldn't say that they're just automatically going to rip the crap out of League One. I think there's a lot of problems at Cardiff, and I don't think it's all sweet and sunshine at Luton. They've got a lot of players on big wages that think that they still deserve to be at the top of the Championship. I really don't think it's going to be as easy as what people think it's going to be. Plymouth's different because of what they've gone through, and there's a lot of good news around maybe the ownership there. And I agree, Jay, that I think Stockport will do well. I do, because obviously they've got Dave Chandler and they're on a good thing there, aren't they? But it's going to be competitive, but I don't see why Town shouldn't be in the conversation.
What I will say about the teams coming down is that losing's a habit. Look at what's happened to Luton, back-to-back relegations. Losing is a habit. And you saw it with Town last year, and you see it with a lot of teams that go down and a lot of players that go down. You see that, like we spoke about. I know my internet was playing up when Lou mentioned it, but he mentioned about City buying winners. I think you can buy losers as well. Players that get relegated or have been relegated in the past. It's a noticeable thing about mentality. And I think it's the beauty of football. You can throw so many variables in it, and you can look at it from so many ways. Nobody knows how it's going to go until the season starts. I do believe there is pressure on Town this year, but I am going to go opposite to Lou and Jay, and I think they're there to be shot at. But I think they're the team that are doing the most at the moment. I think they're going to be up near the top.
I do think there's some reality to that. Gaz. But then I think there's a flip side of it where the quality just can tell. And look at like last season in the Championship, Leeds, Southampton, and Leicester finished in the top 4. You know, Sheffield United and Burnley were both relegated, and then we're equally as then competitive right at the top of the division. And I can't see a world in which, especially for me with Luton, that they continue this trend, and Plymouth. I don't think Plymouth should have really gone down this season. Yeah, Plymouth were too good to go down this season, really, and they've gone down because of Rooney. That's the way that I see.
Yeah, I agree with that.
So I think Plymouth and Luton, I think will be right up there. I think they'll be right. Cardiff are a bit of an. I still think they'll end up just being too strong because ultimately they're going to be able to attract better players than most of the division. That's just the way that it works. That playing in front of a big crowd, good stadium, attraction. You know.
Nice,
mainstay of the championship. Yeah. Well, it is, isn't it? You know what I mean? There's a whole host of things that are going to make people want to pick Cardiff over Exeter or Donny, or you know what I mean. So
yeah, but you're talking about clubs that are going to be at the bottom end of the division.
Yeah, but you could.
We just spent. Hang on. Whoa. We've just spent the last 10 minutes.
Stockport.
But you've just spent the last 10 minutes saying how Town aren't in the conversation for being at the top end of the division, and then Jay's just gone and said, you know, well, Perth are obviously going to go to Cardiff compared to Exeter. Well, yeah, of course they will, because Cardiff are going to be up there and Exeter won't be. But that doesn't mean to say that Town can't be in the conversation for being at the top end of the division.
Town will be, I think, and I said this last season, between 6th and 10th. That's where I see them finishing. Now, that could obviously change, and hopefully for you it does, and Grant has got it all about him, and he manages to put this all together. But Gaz is making the point about losing becomes a habit. Huddersfield have been on this trajectory going the wrong way now for years. So while he's using that to kind of back you up, that actually goes against you as well, because this is something that's ingrained within the club. I've been saying this since the German recharge downs it.
Yeah, but that's the point I was making. You can look at it in so many different ways. There's so many variables. You say losing's a habit, but it's got to end at some point. Winning's a habit. The gap between the Premier League and the Championship, the gap between the League One and the Championship. Honestly, especially with the unknowns that are at Town, obviously they've thrown all this money at it this year. Not to the extent that obviously Birmingham and Wrexham did last year, but they're edging that way. But then you've got Lee Grant, who's a total unknown. He could really could. They could fly, or they could sink.
Yeah, I agree with that. I just think that this summer so far, is the summer where you look at the squad that we've had and look at the amount of players we've gotten rid of. You know, all 9 players that we released, or 8 players that we released, have been there for more than 3 or 4 years of part of that losing culture, and they were all gone. Not one of them, not even Hoggy, was given a new contract. And so as far as I'm aware,
building a new. Well, yeah,
it's just starting again, Chris, from the foundations of like we've got rid of the losing habit, we've got rid of literally every player that's been here in the last 5 years, and we're starting again.
Just going to finish on a couple of quick comments. I mean, look, Ben says that Luton have done nothing so far. He makes the point that Cardiff and Plymouth are losing their best players, getting worse, and Town are snapping up good players early. There is a hell of a lot of time in the transfer window, though, between now and that transfer window ending. A hell of a lot of time to go.
Let's be fair.
Can I just say,
sorry, for some reason, apparently I also sound like a Bradford fan, which I'm not, but okay.
More of a Bradford fan than me, who's just actually tipped Huddersfield to do well.
Sorry, Lou, go on.
Just on that comment, though, says that when he just says they're playing catch-up, what Luton, Cardiff and Plymouth are, Huddersfield are playing catch-up as well. Huddersfield been playing catch-up, let's be honest, for the past 2, 3, 4 years. And listen, and this isn't kind of having a go at Downsy, because I hope Huddersfield have a really good season. My only comment, and I know he's picked me up about parachute payments, is that Luton didn't really spend too much of that on purpose last year, because they've obviously got other things as well. But what I would say is that Luton and Cardiff and Plymouth are probably in a little bit of a better position to get promoted than Huddersfield are at the moment. You know, Plymouth getting Tom Cleverley is a very shrewd appointment. That's not to say Lee Grant isn't a shrewd appointment, but he's proven at a championship level that he's capable of doing it. Luton have got a core of team that, yes, I agree, momentum on a losing perspective isn't great, but Luton should be challenging at the right end of that table. They should be. in Cardiff, whether that's going around. What happens if they do potentially? I've seen on the Sky News, on Sky Sports News earlier today that Gareth Bale's made it quite clear that he's quite open and interested in getting hold of Cardiff City. Not saying that's going to revolutionise and completely make Cardiff winning the league by 120 points, but if there's a consortium behind that, you never know what's going to happen. So Huddersfield are playing catch-up because of this situation they found themselves in. Yes, Luton and Plymouth and Cardiff are to an extent, but Huddersfield have been playing catch-up for the past 3-4 years, and I look at them players who've been released. You're right, Downsy, 100% that it feels like it's a bit of a revolution, but actually, how many of them were proper first-team players week in, week out? I'd say 5 or 6, which feels a significant amount, but you still a lot of hangover left over because of what's happened in previous years. So Lee Grant's got a lot to prove. There's going to be obviously, and this is why I should the question down to why is it, I think there's more pressure on Nagel than there is Grant. I would suspect Huddersfield have got a bit of work to do to cement themselves as favourites. I think the league will see them as favourites, but I think those who have seen Huddersfield and yourselves, Downsy, are going to be slightly wary of what that might look like. And Grant has got to be given that time to prove himself. If he goes after 10 games, what does that look like for Huddersfield Town? What does that look like?
I don't think he will. But I don't think he will do, because I just don't think Nagel can afford to do that, to be honest. The only thing about you saying about hangover is, over the last 2 summers, we should have done it more last summer, but we didn't. But we've done it now over this summer. There's not a lot left of hangover, to be honest, of the last 4 or 5 years. I'll be honest. Like, I know what you're saying about the first team, but they weren't good enough, Lou. Danny Walker.
Really? Do you think that?
You are?
No, I'm just generally asking. Do you think there's very little hangover still happening? Because it's interesting.
Not from the squad that's left. No, I think from the squad that's left, the majority of people that have been here now over the last 4 or 5 years have been released, or we've gotten rid of them. You look at the squad in terms of numbers, it's been filtered down. We had like 46 players at the beginning of last season. That's dramatically dropped now because a lot of the youngsters have been released as well, and we've got rid of the B team squad. So the numbers have been released, and the people that we've gotten rid of are players that, yes, they were first team players, but there were people like Danny Ward that played 3 games for us last season. The only players that are here now that are first team players that I wouldn't be that bothered if they left would be Reece Healy, because he's always injured, Radulovic, who I don't think is good enough, Bulky, you could say, because he's always injured as well, and that's about it. I don't think there's a lot of other players in this squad that you can say, well, actually, Lee Grant probably won't be able to do a lot with them. So personally, I think this summer was a massive summer for Town in terms of getting rid of all them players. Pearson, Leeds, Nichols is probably the last.
Yeah, you're probably right.
Yeah. I'm not saying you're wrong.
Yeah, you're probably right. I think you've also got to use that loan signings window a lot better than what you did last season, because last season was not successful in the slightest.
Well, I tell you how bad it was. No Huddersfield Town fan has said, apart from a few that said Lomvik, I'd say the majority, 85% of fans have said that they wouldn't have one loan player back from last season. Not one.
Yeah, that says it all. Let's move on from Town, because we've been talking about for that long that Gaz has got the snacks out in the end. So we'll start moving away. Although just before we do, I'm going to end on a comment from James, who says that he's a negative Town fan, but if we don't make the top 6 this year, he'll show his ass in the Bradford club shop.
Clear the way for James.
Yeah, if somebody screenshot that and make way for James in the Bradford City Club shop.
Just because
what is ass or the comment?
just because the majority of us are on. I know you're moving on to Leeds, but just in one word, who do you think finishes higher, Bradford or Huddersfield?
Jay.
I think it's going to be incredibly close. I think City are going to be a real dark horse.
Stop sitting on the fence.
Sorry, one word. Town, just.
Right, okay. Lou?
Town.
Chris?
Town just by a point.
By a point. Yes.
It'll be like Town and Lincoln this year. That's what it'll be like.
Gaz?
Yes.
Town.
Oh, come on, Gaz. Back City. You've got to back them.
Just like I said at the start, we've got to stay. Our ambitions are totally different to Huddersfield's this year. Huddersfield's just ours is to stay up.
Stefan Ruffin his playoff budget.
But he's given us a playoff budget, which gives us a little bit of hope, and we've got momentum. But you can't get carried away, and you can't have huge expectations at City because we know what happens when we have that. We know how toxic it gets and how quickly that happens. So I'm maintaining that our expectations have to be kept a lid on for now.
Town to be relegated, City to be promoted.
Really quickly, just before we do move on, because I know this has gone on too long. Apart from Ben, who's a bit mental in the chat, and he joins in Leeds chats more than he does Huddersfield ones. The way that Downs is seeing this right now is actually the way that we'd all see it if we were in their shoes. And I will say, because the positivity of being a fan that should be getting towards promotion, because that is the only goal that can be the goal at the start of the season for Downs and for Huddersfield Town fans. So I think what he's trying to say from a passionate, emotional point of view makes a lot of sense. By the way, I think we might be able to see it with
you should be excited.
Yeah. So I just wanted to say that. Anyway.
But I'm also realistic to know that we're not going to be league champions by 91 points, like probably Ben does.
Yeah.
Well, there we go. Let's quickly move on. We'll turn attention to Leeds in a second. I'm just going to use this opportunity in between whilst we've got a good viewership to plug what's been going along the bottom of the screen over the course of the evening. That myself and Lou, we will be chatting tomorrow to Chris Millington and to his assistant to FC Halifax Town, Andy Cooper. It's a real it'll be a pleasure to have them join us on the show. We're speaking to them tomorrow, and the interview with them, the former FC Halifax Town management team, will be going out on our non-league show on Wednesday night. That's at 9 o'clock this week. Lou, one that, as I say, we're thrilled to be getting Chris Millington and Coops on, and we're looking forward to having a really good chat with him. With basically, seems nothing's off limits.
And Lou's for us.
Apparently so. It'd be really good to catch up with him. Let's see what. I know my internet's horrific. Sorry, chaps. It's like Gaz is throwing it over to me tonight. I think from what they're saying, no limits. Let's see what they've got to say. It's going to be really interesting. Like I say, they've done a remarkable job at Halifax. We know that people have been in contact with ourselves to find out when that is. So we will obviously play that out Wednesday. We're looking forward to chatting to them both tomorrow.
Absolutely. Let's turn our attention then and finish off with Leeds United. Jay, look, it's been a long time coming because we heard of Jakob BIJOL having his medical last week, and then everything. What's happened? He failed it. Has he got a leg missing? What's happening with BIJOL's medical? And then finally today, this popped up from Leeds United.
He's a handsome guy, isn't he?
Anybody think he looks a bit weird?
No, I think he's quite an handsome chap, you know.
I mean, he looks like Piers Brosnan.
Petals, Downsy.
Biggest big Slovenian.
What would his rating be at Butlins?
That's very good, guys. Very good.
2 out of 10.
Yeah, I mean, buzzing with it, mate. I mean, it is very much a statement signing for our second signing. I do expect there to be a lot of movement through the door in the next 2 weeks. I think once you see the turnover into July, I think you're going to see a lot more. But the rumours are really starting to ramp up. And I mean, Jakob BIJOL was rumoured pretty much at the beginning of the window, and it ended up coming to fruition. So, sometimes the rumours are true, they are real. And I do think it's a statement signing. I think it's a signing that Burnley and Sunderland couldn't make. I think that Leeds are the only side that could make that out of the 3 promoted sides. I don't think Sheffield United would have made it. I don't think Southampton or Leicester could have made it either if they were still in the Premier League. When we went up, the same kind of trajectory. So I think it's a real statement. I think he would improve the bottom half of the Premier League. Any club that he chose to pick in the bottom half of the Premier League, I think he's that good. Question marks over his pace. That's probably his weakness to his game, but his reading of the game, his ability in the tackle, his his distribution, his passing ability is excellent. He's fantastic in the air. He's good for 5 or 6 goals a season as well. And he gives us ultimately what we're really lacking within the squad, which is physicality. We have a dying kind of need for physicality right through the spine of the team, in the middle, the keeper, the centre backs, and the striker. And obviously with Sanametra as well, who can kind of give a physical presence there. And he's not a bad 3rd or 4th choice striker. So yeah, buzzing with Jacobi on now. Really happy with it.
You mentioned that the rumours are starting to come out in full force. Run us through your favourites, and or even if it's some that you're looking at and thinking, God, please, no, don't happen. Talk us through a few of them.
So the Diarra link won't go away. The midfielder from Senegal who scored against England the other week. I think that will probably, unfortunately, not get done from what we're hearing, but who knows?
See, that's at Strasbourg.
Strasbourg, yeah. The midfielder in replacement of him, his name slips me now. Exactly the same as him. I forget his name. Sorry, I didn't have time to prepare before coming on.
That's a problem, mate. Don't worry. I'll put you on the spot with this.
Yeah, Sebastian Semetsky from Benfica has been quite widely linked today. The Israeli number 10 has been linked as well. Again, I forget his name. I'm quickly trying to fly through anything that I see on Twitter to get any others.
BD, is he joining still?
Who?
Kevin De Bruyne.
Kevin De Bruyne, I imagine. No, it
was linked at the start of the window.
Yeah, well, I think that was linked by Lewis Sale.
I was going to say, I thought it was just Lou that said it would be a really good signing, to be fair.
That was a wild rumour that Lou set going.
Gudmundsson from the left back from... Say again? Lou's got such ability, it's untrue.
You wanted Magic Man. You wanted a Magic Man with magic in his feet. It'd have been perfect, but he was never going to go to Leeds. But he's the kind of player you could have looked at.
Yeah. So yeah, it's hard to keep up with them, Chris, if I'm totally honest with you, because they come and go on the daily. I mean, Nick Pope's been back on the agenda again today because
I was going to ask about the goalkeeper situation specifically.
Burnley have signed a keeper today, which seems it's going to be a replacement for James Trafford. So I can see that one happening. I just think it makes a lot of sense, and I think that Nick Pope will know that he's going to start every week. So I can see that one. I can see that one happening.
Is this where the little merry-go-round starts? Then Burnley bringing one keeper that allows Trafford to leave Burnley and go to Newcastle, and Pope to leave Newcastle to go to Leeds.
100%. I think you're seeing that across the Premier League. If I'm honest,
it's definitely ramping up in Newcastle United circles as well about Trafford. Today, it's gathered a lot of momentum. We know our famous social media friend Fabrizio's tweeted about it again. I think, me being a Newcastle fan, I think it's an interesting one because the Pope rumours have dampened down a little bit. It's depending whether he's happy to potentially play second fiddle with Trafford, but knowing how Eddie Howe does normally do it, he doesn't bring players in straight away. It could be likely that Pope may start the season and Trafford's got to earn his right. We saw it with Bruno Guimaraes, we saw it with Tonali, so there's absolutely no guarantee that can happen. There's Dubravka, there's Vaklajevic as well, who's the Greek keeper. So it will be an interesting one. If he is to go, then Newcastle will want a decent amount of money to replace him because they won't just sell him for nothing in a moment.
I tell you one that really does interest me is Rodrigo Muniz from Fulham. Apparently, we had a £32 million bid rejected for him last week, which I find hard to believe because I can't believe that it'd be worth any more than 32 million. But I really would like him as well. I've grown really excited by the potential of it. Like, I know he's only had like a purple patch at Fulham and then he didn't really play the rest of the time, but I just think he's the profile that would really suit us, and I think he would be our out-and-out number 9. But I do think any more than 32 million is excessive for what we've seen.
It seems a lot of money for someone that, as you say, hasn't got that proper track record in the Premier League as yet to kind of put a lot of financial eggs into that basket.
Yeah, I agree.
You know what it
Gaz-
is. You know what it is. You know what it is. I think in the moment. I think in the moment in the Premier League, the money it's so inflated. We saw this a couple of seasons ago, and I think it's only going to get even more crazy because of the PSR stuff that's coming in July. You know, that's going to come to an end, and it seems very exaggerated at the moment. You know, you hear rumours of players potentially like Muniz and others that I've seen, whether it's true or not on social media, that, you know, they're probably worth about 20 million less, which sounds crazy to say 20 million less. But I think clubs are just trying to see and squeeze as much as possible out of clubs to see what they can do. Muniz is probably worth, let's be honest, 15, 20 million as a Premier League striker. 32 is excessive. But then you look at other clubs that, you know, again, my team being linked with players, and whether it is the Saudi tax that people call it, but, you know, there's 20 million, 30 million being added onto some of these players just because there's a possibility that these teams can afford it. We've seen it today, Crystal Palace have been taken over by New York Jets, with the shareholdings in there, that they're now to get to Europe, which, you know, apparently Gay may be leaving, may not be leaving to run down his contract. Does Crystal Palace sell him? That's another merry-go-round with that. Eze's reportedly got this release fee, which I'm surprised nobody's taken up advantage for, because I think he's unreal at that price. But then you see other players' valuations just going through the roof. So it will calm down at some point. But at the moment, if you're going to sign somebody, you've got to really do your homework and do as best as you can, because you know, you're having to pay over the odds, and Leeds are going to have to pay over the odds to stay up. It's as simple as that.
Yeah, you agree. It's like this with Kwanzaa, isn't it? From Liverpool to Leverkusen. I mean, the transfer fee involved is just insane.
About 34 million euros.
He's maybe worth half of that. Now, I mean, Gaz is smiling, but there's a lot of jiggery-pokery going on because of the transfers between Liverpool and Leverkusen. You don't really know what the real transfer fee is, because you can't take into consideration how long the contracts were, how the amortization's working, who needs the money where for PSR and all the rest of it. And ultimately, you're probably looking at a £10 million defender being sold for 30 odd million just to clear up some sheet, you know, columns on the sheets for these two clubs. It's an absolute madness. But I mean, I agree completely with Lou, and we are going to have to spend money, and we are going to spend money. I think that's why the signing of a Amechi is really smart. Like, you can't just go throwing tens of millions of pounds at every player that you sign, and to be able to sign pretty much a top flight ready-made player at 26-year-old for free is really shrewd business. Really shrewd business.
And in terms of nation, at least, he classes as homegrown because, of course, he was in Manchester City's academy.
Yeah, yes, he does. So, yeah. And I mean, he's better than Matteo Joseph, and he's better than Patrick Bamford. So he straight away comes into the squad as our second-choice striker, and we will sign another number 9. So, yeah.
So you think you'll sign another number 9? What other positions do you think you need to sign somebody?
Thanks, Downsy. You just stole my thunder.
Oh, that was Gaz's question.
Oh, sorry, Gaz. Right, hang on. Let's go live to Gaz. Gaz, I ask you a question. You've got a question.
Well, I just want to say before I ask my question that Michael Edwards is a genius. Yeah, I was talking to a few of us had a beer on Saturday, didn't we? And I was talking to Brownie, and Brownie were getting, you know what Brownie's like, getting a bit angsty about Leeds need to do some business. We've only made one signing. When's BIJOL going to be announced?
It's June.
He was talking about how much business he felt you needed to do. But as a more realistic fan, Jay, how much business do you need to do?
We do need to do a lot. We do need to do a lot, guys. Like, I mean, this is quite a broad answer to the question, but everywhere, like genuinely everywhere.
You're aligned with Brownie then, because that's what he said.
We still do, because, you know, we need a 9, we need an out-and-out 9, we need a 10, we need another centre midfielder, we need another centre-back because we're going to lose Verba and we may see Pascal go as well. We need a left-back because Junior Firpo's left, we probably need 2. And we need a goalkeeper. So it's right the way through the span. And bear in mind, at the moment, it doesn't look as if Solomon's going to come back. So then you would argue that we need another winger. So we genuinely need everywhere. I think we need another 6 or 7 really good signings to be in and around the squad. I mean, it depends on what you're asking for guys. Like, we want to stay up, right? So the aim has to be to to sign the sufficient quality of players that improves our squad. And right now, the squad as it is and this is why I kind of pushed back on Downs' request for a team last week, because the team is going to look so different come the start of the season. It's going to look nothing like what we've got. I genuinely think right now there'll be another 5 or 6 signings that will start the season. That's how much I think it'll change.
That's what Brownie said. He said exactly the same. Yeah.
Are you surprised that Solomon's not come back?
I think he was getting married, and I have heard that he was still stuck in Israel. I don't know how true that is. The rumours coming out.
I mean, of all the places to go for a wedding at this time of year, even if it is your own, relocate it to Norfolk or something. Good God.
Jesus. I think that the rumours that are coming out is it kind of timely fits with the Ange sacking. Obviously, Ange wasn't his player. He didn't want him, made that clear. Ange being sacked, Thomas Frank coming in, the noises are that Thomas Frank really likes him and wants to give him a go at Spurs. So if he can kind of move back to the club that he obviously intended to, he was at Fulham before, he's probably, apart from this year at Leeds, he's been settled in London, and he can now have another go at a massive club. Spurs have got the opportunity, they're going to be playing Champions League football next season.
Yeah, they're going to need squad depth as well.
Yeah, I mean, if Solomon had been there all season, guys, he'd have played. He'd have played a lot of games. He would have done. So would Joe Rodon. Joe Rodon would have played a hell of a lot of games as well. So I can't blame him as much as I think he, really enjoyed his time. He said all the right things. He was a massive part of the squad. If I'm being honest with you, and it's hard for me to say, he's beyond us right now. We would be really, really lucky to get him. There's no way if he'd have gone and had this loan somewhere in Europe and come back to Spurs, we'd have ever had a chance of getting him. The only reason that we're even having the conversation is because he was on loan at us last season. He's a sensational player. He's a top player. So yeah, it's a shame, but I think we can take the money somewhere else and hopefully get the recruitment right and replace him.
It's going to be a very, very.
Can I just say though before other people?
There's that delay.
Sorry, Chris, and I'm sorry I'm massive on delay. Yeah, sorry. I'm going to sound very simple here, right? And people will probably laugh at me, but we said it in the chat. But what Leeds United have got to do is they've simply got to buy players who are better than what they've currently got. And people think it's a football manager where they can just pick and choose who they want and can go grab him and go, oh, we'll grab him and we'll take him and we'll sign 10, 11 players. Now, Jay's right. They probably do need improvement across the pitch, but Daniel Farke isn't able to probably go and get 11, 12 players. That's just not how a football team usually works. We've seen likes of, obviously, Huddersfield and City having to kind of evolve their squad. Huddersfield, if they could have probably changed their squad 2-3 years ago, Downsy, you probably agree, you'd have done it. You'd have swapped the whole probably 16, 17 and you just swapped it out. But what I'll say is it's that now Leeds have got an opportunity to evolve that squad. They're not going to revolutionise that squad because that squad has won that league very, very comfortably, you'd probably argue. I know they've competition with Burnley, but they've done, they've cemented that top 2 spot very comfortably. If Leeds sign 5 or 6 good players who can improve that squad, as a Leeds fan, that's all you can ask for at the moment because you're not going to change that whole squad. And it would seem bizarre to do that because, again, we're a winning team. We've got that momentum and exactly what we spoke about earlier. But Leeds are not going to go out and spend 250 million and get 16 players. That just ain't going to happen. And people sometimes have got to rein in that kind of, and it's horrible, it sounds as a fan, you've got to kind of rein in that whole excitement and a bit giddiness and, we can have him and we can do this. Solomon in Tottenham have been mad to get rid of Solomon. They've absolutely been mad to get rid of him at this moment in time. Yeah, but what Leeds have now got to expect is they're going to have to shop in a market that, unfortunately, the Premier League is. Some players who are not in Premier League starting 11s, they're probably going to have to dip into that market because they're probably better than what they had last season. And people just got to be realistic about that.
This comes back a little bit on it's the opposite of what you were saying earlier, Luke. When you're on about City and making too many changes and it affecting momentum, and you've got to be really careful. We're kind of talking about the same thing, but at the other side, that they need to make changes. Leeds need to make all these changes to have a chance of staying up. But if you make too many, do you knack a momentum like exactly what you were saying about with City and replacing Smallwood? And it's like I was saying before. There's so many different ways of looking at things. It's frightening.
But I did say this at the end of last season, where when obviously we knew what Leeds were going up, and there were all the talk about, oh, we're going to be able to spend this much money, and do all this because we're not under PSR restrictions and the rest of it. I just thought it was just living in the clouds because you are buying
that's actually not the case.
No.
That's actually not the case. In terms of the available funds for us, we are talking around 180 to 200 million.
Yeah, but it's not enough. It's not enough.
That can be spent.
Well,
what do you mean it's not enough?
It's enough if the recruitment's right. It is, but the recruitment has to be spot on. The problem isn't the money. It's identifying the correct players for the right price and making sure that you then make educated gambles, especially in your first season up. So your BIJOLs, as an example, BIJOL could go into Bournemouth, Brentford. He could go into Crystal Palace. He could go in there and start games week in, week out.
Yeah,
and we've managed to steal a march and get a player like him. But we don't know right now for certain whether he's going to be good enough for the Premier League. And that we think he is based on the educated gamble that we're having to make. So we have to find 4 or 5 of them and then hope that that's enough to finish 17th. That's where it's at. Because that's the reality of the matter. And it is, we are capable of being able to get 4 or 5 to do that. We need a centre midfielder, a 10, a 9, and a keeper. Them 4 are absolutely pivotal. If we can get BIJOL level signings for them 4 positions, 20 to 30 million each, because that is what they're talking about spending on them 4 positions, and filter it in and around your Tanakas, your Ramazanis, your Nontos, your Dan Jameses, your Jayden Bogles, Joe Rodons. This squad could then be good enough to stay up. But right now it's not. That's how I see it. Right now.
I think that's fair.
100%.
Downsy?
100% agree.
Downsy might have
it's frozen,
I think.
Go on, Chris, you 5 some, aren't they?
Well, I was just going to say, in terms of the fixtures, because, of course, since we last had a Monday night with you all, the fixtures, I don't think, had quite come through. Downsy seems to have disappeared altogether. We've had to say goodbye to Gaz as well. So we'll just finish it off with this kind of look at the fixtures. And, I mean, the fact that you're back in the Premier League, and as cocky as you're going to be about this, you're straight back into being on the telly as well for the Monday Night Football against Everton.
Shock horror.
I mean, you look at the fixtures overall, though, the start of the season that you've been handed. Of course, Everton at home, followed by Arsenal away, followed by Newcastle at home, takes you to the end of the transfer window. Those first 3 games between the opening day of the season and where the window shuts, how much do you reckon you'll kind of be able to learn? And how much do you reckon Daniel Farke will be able to learn about the squad when it comes to playing those 3 games? And then, obviously, them thinking about that deadline just after that 3rd game against Newcastle.
Yeah, I think it's as nice of a fixture as we could hope to have. I mean, obviously, you could say Sunderland at home, Jay, or Burnley at home, right? But I think a winnable game at home on our opening return to the Premier League is as good as we could hope to get it. At least we've got a game that's winnable. I wouldn't want to be an Everton player going into an opening day season Monday night under the lights at Ellen Road. It's not an ideal fixture for them. So I quite like it. I think it's a good game to test where we're at. I hate the fact that I'm having to wait 3 days for the first game on the return. That's really, really annoying. But it's Leeds United. Sorry, that's just the way that it is. Like, nobody's really tuning into that game to watch Everton on the opening day of the season. They're tuning in to see Leeds United again. It's just the truth. So, I think I'd be delighted with 4 points come the end of the transfer window. I think if we can beat Everton on the opening day, both of the other games are bonuses. Yeah, I think they're pure bonuses, fair. Free hits, and then we can see where where the land lies going into September. Yeah,
so, deadline day, and then thereafter the Fulham. We've had, to be fair, once you get past that 3rd game, that Newcastle game, you then have deadline day, and then a 2-week international break before it being Fulham away, and then obviously Fulham away, Wolves away, Bournemouth at home, Spurs at home, takes you to the start of October.
Yeah. So it's definitely not ideal, but it could have been a lot worse. And I think if we could come out of them 3 games with 4 points, like I say, it'd be a huge bonus. But as long as we beat Everton on the opening day, I genuinely think most Leeds fans will be pretty calm about what happened in the next two, given who they are.
Again, I kind of went down that devil's advocate route and with Downsy. Worst case scenario, you lose those first 3-4 games, or certainly the first 3. I mean, I'm about to say, will there be any panic? Of course there will. It's the Leeds United fan base. There'll certainly be some panic somewhere in the fan base. But I'm guessing there wouldn't be a great deal of panic from yourself. Okay, I was going to say from yourself and Brownie. Forget Brownie.
No,
There
Brownie will
wouldn't
be
be too much
freaking
panic
out.
from you. Brownie will be thinking, we're doomed, it's too late, we're down already.
Yeah, Brownie would be freaking out, big, good and proper. Like I really like. I wouldn't worry if we lost them 3 games from a perspective of our season. I think it's a long season. We're going to lose a lot of games this season. We're going to have spells where we might go 3, 4, 5, 6 games without a win. That happens. It happens for the teams right at the top. You know, we saw it towards the end of the season with Forest. Like, there's a lot of good teams in the Premier League. Again, shock horror, right? So I'm not overly concerned by that from a season perspective, but I would be concerned for it from a Daniel Farke perspective. I think the daggers would be really out from him for him from the fan base. If he was to get no points in them first 3 games, even though they are tough. So I think that opening day is pretty key for Daniel Farke, Everton at home. But yeah, that's how I see it. I wouldn't be worried that it would be catastrophe for the season. I think come the end of them 3 games, there'll probably be 2 or 3 teams on 0 points. It's just the way that the Premier League runs, isn't it? So
yeah, absolutely. I mean, the fact that maybe Fulham away, Wolves away, Bournemouth at home is what follows, possibly then gives you a little bit more encouragement of games to pick points.
Yeah, September's winnable, isn't it?
Yeah, certainly seems that way. Lou, your kind of thoughts for Leeds and overall in terms of those opening fixtures, especially as a Newcastle fan.
It's never easy, is it? Yeah, it's never easy. I mean, I think in terms of a home game, you look at Everton and it's one that probably through the season you want to win anyway because they're going to be probably in and around where you're going to be. But having watched Everton, and I think they're going to be a bit of a different beast anyway. They are one of the most organised teams that I've seen. I watched them at last game of last season at Newcastle, and they were phenomenal. And I know that obviously they were nothing much to play for, but it just showed what David Moyes has done there. But they're going to evolve as well. Leeds have just got to pick up points as and when they can. It's as simple as that, and they might be able to, depending on how the fixtures are, and with the amount of teams that are in Europe. And also the teams that we're seeing, the likes of Brentford, which are going to have to change. We're seeing Bournemouth might have to change as well. Leeds do have an opportunity of staying up. Not saying at the moment, and I agree with Jay, that the squad's good enough to stay up, because I think at the moment there's still a bit of work to do. But there's an opportunity there with the Champions League, Europa League, Conference. You know, we talk about Forest being in the Conference League. That's going to affect them big time. Palace being in the Europa League, that will affect them. You know, you look at the teams in the Champions League. We saw Spurs stink the place out last year, but are in the Champions League. They've got that to contend with. They've just got to pick the games as carefully as they can do. And if you are playing some of those teams that are in Europe on a Sunday, that's when you've got to really capitalise, I think, as a Leeds United team, because that could potentially keep you up next season. You know, we've seen the amount of teams that have been in the Champions League, and there's an excessive amount going into it next season. Leeds don't have to prioritise a domestic trophy at all, being honest. They might use it as an opportunity to give squad players and young players a bit of an opportunity. I think Leeds fans are going to be more than comfortable with that. But I do think that if they sign the right players for the right money and the right characters, there is an opportunity for them to stay up. I do think that.
Yeah.
Don't miss hearing me with regards to the opening day either. I agree with you that Everton will be a bit of a different beast this season. I think they'll be unfortunately quite comfortable in and around amongst mid-table. But I still think it's a more favourable game for Leeds than a lot of the other fixtures could have been.
Yeah, absolutely.
You know, Newcastle away, Liverpool away, Everton away would have been an horrible, any away game against one of the tricky sides would have been, and then there's plenty of other teams that could come to Welling Road that I would like to see less than Everton. So I just think it's a nice game to see where we're at and matches ourselves with, and hopefully we can pick up 3 points. Yeah.
I mean, you look at Burnley's opening fixtures stink the place out. You know,
They've
that's
been
not a
handed
running
very
you want
tough
to go
start.
with.
Yeah.
They have been handed it tough. Downsy, kind of any final words? And seems dangerous giving the Huddersfield Town fan the last word on Leeds United. But you know, how are you looking enviously down the M62 at Leeds back in the Premier League?
No, I'm fine about it. It's they deserve to win the league, so you know they deserve to get promoted, and they were the best team in the division. So, end of the day, they played some superb football. They decided to try and self-destruct themselves over a couple of fixtures, but that's Leeds fans all over, bar Jay and Brownie. 95% of the Leeds fan base like to destroy themselves. But yeah, listen. I think there's three key sides in this because I do think Sunderland will be relegated. Am I back? Hello?
Just about, yeah. I think you're there.
Yes, you can hear me?
Audio you are,
Right.
but you're frozen, but we can hear you. Oh, there we go. You are back now.
Okay. All right. Sorry. So I think Sunderland will be relegated. I think everybody's frozen for me, so I don't know if I'm here or not. But yeah, I think Sunderland will be relegated, and I think Burnley will be relegated. The three sides for me, I think that will be the worst, or that Leeds could challenge with, are now Brentford, because I think they're in serious problems with Frank leaving, and I think a lot of their good players are going to leave. West Ham.
I literally just heard Brentford,
Did you hear
Wolves, and
any of
West
that?
Ham.
Wolves and then West Ham.
And Brentford beforehand.
I think you might have to just take the reins here, Chris.
Yeah, the guys have passed me his Wi-Fi, and so has Lou.
It's all gone wrong tonight.
Honestly,
End
everyone's
it, Chris.
Wi-Fi. Everyone's Wi-Fi. It seems has been an absolute car crash over the course of the evening at some stage of the show. But somehow we have managed to get through.
Just end it, Chris. I'll say about Leeds on another show.
Somehow we have got to an hour and 38 minutes of this stream, so we will get it wrapped up there. Just a quick reminder that Jay and Brownie, that you're going to be back tomorrow night with a Leeds United special.
Yeah, we should be Leeds Lately, or Leeds Latest as we're calling it. Just talking all things, going through all the rumours, bit about what we've obviously touched on tonight. It's a bit tricky sometimes in pre-season because you're just making a lot of it up, aren't you? So, but yeah, we'll be back tomorrow, all being well.
Absolutely. And then myself and Lou, we will be back on Wednesday night with our non-league show, in which we have an exclusive interview with Chris Millington and Andy Cooper, the first and only broadcast interview that I'll be doing at the moment since leaving FC Halifax Town. So I'll be delighted to be joined by them. Any FC Halifax Town fans, if you have any questions you want us to put to Chris and to Andy, do get them into us on X, if possible, before 9 a.m. tomorrow morning. And we'll try and get the questions asked, and then that will be broadcast, as I say, on our non-league show on Wednesday night, though. For the rest of the night, enjoy whatever you get up to for the rest of your evenings. From myself and from Jayson, Booker, Stephen Downs, Lewis Sale, and Gareth Walker, big thank you to you all, lads, for taking the time to join us here on the stream tonight. Big thank you to everyone that's been in touch and commented on the chat as well, from Ben to Ian to James to Rebecca to various others as well. We'll see you soon here on the West Yorkshire Football Show.